Assalamu alaikum everybody. How is everyone doing? Am I audible? क्या गलती हो गई उज़ैफ़ा? मुझे बाद में मैसेज कर देना. I can have a look at it. But if the mistake is only not writing according to the marking scheme, then that's not a mistake because you can have multiple solutions to it. So yes, so if marking scheme is doing it a bit different way, it does not mean that your answer is wrong. Remember this, okay? There could be multiple ways of approaching a question, multiple ways to answer a question, and to be honest, the only thing matters is that your logic is correct. So if our 15 marker is not in order, will I get marks? You will definitely be getting marks, but if you remember that day I was talking about AO3, right? So that AO3, sorry, the first 6 marks part, which comes under the assessment objective number 2. In that I talked about how there are marks for the flow too. So if you're messing up the flow and you're like going here and there, then yeah, you're gonna just lose marks there. Rest you can still get like that 9 or 10 marks even if your flow is incorrect. Zephyr, you can just let me know and I can have a look at the code. No problem at all. So if I get 10 marks out of 15, yes, it's really good. Don't worry. Today we're going to solve the May-June 2023 paper number 22. This paper is sort of, very, um, you might say an emotional paper for me maybe, because this was the paper I gave when I myself was a student. So this was the paper in which I got a top in Pakistan distinction. This was the paper in which I sort of, hopefully, I'm not sure how much marks did I get, but I guess I got like a perfect 15 by 15. So for that reason, without wasting any further time, let's just jump into it. Okay, let me set up the chat box on the side so that I can see you guys' messages, and then let's just do Bismillah. So let me start the screen sharing. Alright, so you guys would be able to see it now. Kindly let me know. I woke up at like 3:30. It's just I have to pull some all-nighters nowadays because सुबह classes आप लोग की होती है, and then at night time I have to study for my own uni stuff. So it's not very low-key difficult. So we're gonna just start off. First, let me know when is your physics ATP? Is it tomorrow or is it day after tomorrow? Let me know about this, then we can start off. So, okay, it's on Tuesday, 19th. Okay. So please show me 15 by 15 marking scripts. All these scripts which you are currently looking at, these are 15 by 15. Don't worry. So let me just download the paper and jump into it. Okay, so question paper 22. This question was apparently a bit challenging because it asked a student to create functions, parameters, and there was this big problem of understanding when to shift what and when not to shift, what arrays to deal with, what arrays to not deal with. So I still remember that after this paper, when I came back home, even though I was alhamdulillah very happy because I sort of aced the 15 marker, and I knew that even though it might be difficult, I knew at that point that I might get a distinction because of the way I was confident with approaching everything. So this was the paper in which teachers were like, you might get an A grade at like 40 marks or maybe like 39 marks out of 75, like literally. So people were very much, crying, and it was that moment. I was in the exam hall and I was writing the 15 marker. Like I was literally sort of, alhamdulillah, cooking it up. And then apparently I needed an extra sheet booklet, and I was like, sir, extra sheet. And legit, half of the hall like literally looked this way towards me, that who the hell is this person who like literally is asking for an extra booklet in this 15 marker. So it was like a very crazy day. But yeah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, it was very fun. So back to the same paper, back to the same questions, which I appeared back in my actual Cambridge examinations. Let me just set up one other thing up here on my laptop. Let me open up the chat box. So if anything is being messed up, you guys can watch. I can check it from here too. All right, perfect. So let's start off then. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's go to the last question. So where do we have it? Yep, let's go. So let's start off. So the question says, a two-dimensional array with the name of account basically contains the account holder's name and passwords for such a banking program. Whenever you get a question like this, which seems to be a bit complex, it's really important that you make this rough work alongside, otherwise you're going to miss it out. And if you miss important things, the problem is, I again and again say that once you make this draft clearly, literally acing a 15 marker is not challenging. Literally. That's the reason why all of you, majority of the students come up and they're like, sir, when you take the class, I feel like 15 marker is very easy. But then when I try doing it on my own, I'm unable to do it. That's because you don't make these notes, okay? So the question says there is a 2D array with the name of accounts. Accounts or account? Okay, so it's account only. So we have a two-dimensional array with the name of account. In this, they clearly mention that it contains the holder's name and passwords. So whatever comes first, this has to go in my column number 1. And whatever comes second, that most probably goes into my column number 2, right? So this basically means that if I come up here, I can say that this, because this is my column number 1, I can call this to have my names being stored inside it. And then the second one was storing my passwords. So for example, it could have something like, I might have my name up here as Mars, and then the corresponding password might come next to it, where it might have my password could be like code catalyst 12. So that's a two-dimensional array. Okay, so there is a two-dimensional array where one column is storing the names, and then the second column is basically storing the, am I lagging? I guess I'm not lagging at this point, am I? It's working fine for me up here. Yeah. Oh, buddy, how the hell will I be repairing the internet? I'm here on my university internet. I'm already cooked. Let's uh, let me recheck. It's fine. Yeah, I guess it's better. But just let me know the moment it goes out of the visibility range, I can then do something about it. Screen is blurred. Let me rechange it. Just a second. Give me a second. It should be better now. It should be better now. You may refresh the page and it may be better. Is it better now, guys? Or should I change? Right, so let's get back. You cannot hear me. Should be able to hear you. No? Right, so okay, let's get back. Now you would be able to hear me. Do one thing. Refresh the page. Refresh the page. All right, let's get back to the work then. Everything is fine now. I've verified it at my end too. So now what's happening is we have a two-dimensional array with the name of account, and in that the first column stores the name and the second column basically stores the password. Okay. Then it says that a two-dimensional another array with the name of account details has three columns containing the following details. So we have a 2D array again, but this has like three columns inside it. So it's like a bit larger one. So if I make this larger two-dimensional array with three columns inside it, one column, the second column, and that being the third column, the question tells us clearly that column number one stores the balance, the amount of money in the account, for example, 250. So the first one is basically storing my balance. So I might write balance up here. Okay. Then the second one says that column number two stores the overdraft limit. What's overdraft limit? It's the maximum total amount an account holder can borrow from the bank after the account balance reaches zero. So it's like we have credit cards, right? So it's sort of that credit amount which you can opt for if you, let's say, need some extra money just because your account touched zero and you're purchasing something. So it's like the maximum amount of extra money you can opt for at one time. So this is my overdraft limit. I can write that overdraft up here. And then of course the last one comes out to be as column number three, which stores the withdrawal limit, which means the amount of money that can be withdrawn at once. For example, 200. For example, I can at once, let's say, just take out $200, not more than that. Like in Pakistani ATMs, you might have seen you cannot take out more than 50,000 in a single day. That's like a rule set by State Bank for ATMs. You can do it through bank, but for ATM, it's like 50K set. So that's like my withdrawal limit. Okay. Withdrawal, my bad. Now we have the two-dimensional array set up. So I might say I have a balance of, let's say, 350. I might have an overdraft of 100, and I can withdraw $200 at the same time. Now what I'm going to do is let's go and read the question. Now it says that the amount of money in a bank account can be negative. So I can say that the amount of money in my account can be negative, but not by more than overdraft limit. For example, an account with an overdraft limit must have a balance that is greater than or equal to minus 100. This means that if I have 350 right now, what's the maximum amount of purchase I can do? It could be like if I spend all the $350 or rupees I have in my account, plus I spend this $100 or 100 rupees extra overdraft I have, right? So at this point, the maximum most expensive thing I can purchase is of, like, let's say 450 rupees. Okay, 450 rupees. But this means that if I purchase something of 450 rupees, how much balance will I have in my account? So my balance will be 350 minus 450, which is basically minus 100. So the program or the question is basically trying to tell us that there is a possibility for your balance to basically go negative. Okay, it can go negative. But how negative can it go? It can maximum go negative by your net balance. If I say net balance or like total balance, it's equal to your current balance amount minus the overdraft limit you have. Overdraft limit. So like if you have the potential to have an overdraft of 500 rupees, then the maximum you can do at this point is 850 rupees, which means that if you get something of 850 rupees, whereas you only had 350 rupees in your account, your overdraft banking limit will become something like 550 but negative, which basically means that, okay, you took minus 100, basically means that you took 100 rupees from the bank, which now you need to return. So that's the logic of having balance, overdraft, and withdraw. Now going back to the question, the question now says that suitable error messages must be displayed if a withdrawal cannot take place. For example, if the overdraft limit or the size of withdrawal is exceeded. So now if I say that I have only a withdrawal of 200, but someone tries to do 300 withdrawal, okay, 300. So because 300 is greater than the 250 withdrawal limit we have set up here, I'm going to say that this should send an error or a message like, okay, output, and you might do something like out of range, okay, something like that, which is what we mean by error messages. Okay, then it says that the bank account ID gives the index of each account holder's data held in the 2D array. For example, the account ID's 20 details would be held in account 21 and account 22, account details 21 and account details 22 and account details 23. What this is trying to tell us is that generally we take this index to be something like using a loop or maybe something which we are like, okay, for account 1 to the total number of balance accounts and all that stuff. But this time they made it a bit complex because they said that this one, again, this one refers to both the same thing. So like if I go to accounts and I go to column number 1 and I grab it for the first index, this mass is storing the same details of the person who has 350 balance, 100 overdraft and 200 withdrawal. So like this entire row, this followed by this entire row is basically storing the details about the same person. So just remember, when we talk about a row talks about the entire entity. So it's like the entire entity, like one single person. Now we don't know how many accounts we have up here. We don't know. But what we know is that in the program, they are going to tell us that you need to go to this index. Like you might need to go to index number 10, or you might need to go to account number 11. So right now this index which we have, like this position which we have, this position is basically my account number. So the program is making us write something where we have this account number, and using this account number we might be opening this stuff, opening that stuff, that, or maybe something else. Okay, so now if we go back, the question then says, this explains it, right? So it says that if there is an account 20, so it tells us that the row part for all of them are basically going to be 20. And what is row in most of the cases? Row is just my index or position number. So this means that if they give us some number like 21, this will automatically mean go to the array, go to position number 21 and grab this, or maybe that data. Okay. So now if I go back, it says that the variable size contains the number of accounts. So how many total accounts do we have in this whole program? It's like stored in size. Yes, we will be only doing the 50 markers. So that total amount of accounts we have, number of accounts, that is stored in size. And then it says that the arrays and variables, which is the size, they have already been set up and the data is stored, which means that all the accounts and the second one, which was what? Account details. So the second one was account details, ACC details. Both of these two arrays are already filled up. So you do not need to take any input. People usually make this blunder. They go and take input. But you are not required to take an input because they said that it's already filled. So like you may assume that this has the details of all of the banking people who have like an account in a specific bank. Now if I go to the question, it says that you need to write a program that meets the following requirement. You first and foremost check the account ID exists and that the name and password entered by the account holder match the name and password stored in account before any action can take place. So we know that when writing the program, someone will tell me that, okay, buddy, I want to go to my account number 69, okay, or like 690, for example, or maybe even if I have to make it a bit smaller, let's say someone says that, okay, I have an account which is at 25th position, okay, 25th position. Now, if an account is at 25th, how will I validate it? Now, the question says you need to validate it. By validation, they basically mean that you need to check whether the account ID exists or not, whether this 25 literally actually exists or not. So to check that, there was a variable with the name of size, right? There was a variable with the name of size. So after this size will tell me how many total elements there are. Okay, so there might be something like 150 total bank accounts. Now I will be checking, is 25, let's say, is 25 less than or equal to 150? If it is, wouldn't that mean yes, this account exists? Because if it does exist, this means that, okay, if it's less than this, and at the same time, I can also say that this 25 is basically greater than 0, right? Greater than or equal to 0. If it's within this range of the maximum number of accounts we have in the bank, this would just mean that yes, account exists. Account exists. Then it says alongside this, then it says that you also need to validate the name and password by the account holder. So like we will ask him, what's the name, what's your name, and what's your password. And then what we need to do is that we're going to take their name and then we're going to take their password. And we're going to compare the name with this column, Mars, We're going to compare their password with this column. And if let's say any of them does not match, we're going to give them an error that, buddy, this is wrong. You are doing it wrong. So what this program is asking us at this point to do is that we are creating a banking system. So in the banking system, now in a banking system, what's going to happen is that you're going to be asked to basically input your bank account number. Okay. I'm re-explaining it, guys. I'm re-explaining it. Chill. So this is a banking system. We have these 2D arrays, two-dimensional arrays. Okay. What the program is telling us is that there will be an account number. Okay. So like, for example, I know my account number. Everybody in a bank has an account number. Let's say your account number is 25. So we're going to write a program where I say this 25 is basically referring to this index, right? So when normally I do something like account row number 1, what does this mean? This means go to the first row and whatever data is up here, go take that, right? Take that. But generally what you have is, in this case, they told us that your account number is basically representing your rows. They gave us this example, right? So if you have an account ID 20, the details would be held in account 20, account 20, account 20, account 20. So this means that this time basically my row is representing what? My row is basically representing the account ID, which will be given by the program. Now, when I have my row as this, now the program is saying that you open up this banking app. So the first thing that comes up is they ask a question. Tell me your ID. Tell me your ID. Your ID. Then you ask the person for your name and password. What you need to do is you need to first and foremost check whether this ID is valid or not. Like, why isn't like, what if they come up with some random sort of an ID? To ensure that the ID is correct, what we can do is we can check it alongside something known as a variable size. So the program told us that there is a variable size. This size stores the total number of accounts. So like, let's say I have 100 accounts in a bank, which could be like account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on, 98, 99, 100. So you have 100 accounts. Now, if my account number is something like 25, this 25 would be within the range of the created accounts, right? So we can have a question. We can have the accounts from 1 to, let's say, 100. We can have like 100 accounts. This means that 25 will be an account which exists, right? But if somebody enters something like 125, but in reality we only have 100 accounts, doesn't that mean that okay, this is incorrect? Because itne to accounts in here, how come is he storing this, right? And similarly, what if somebody enters something like -5 account? That's also wrong. So we're going to make something that checks whether the account ID which I have, is it, if it's greater than or equal to, if your account ID, if it's greater than your size, or I say that your account ID, it's less than your size, then this means that there is going to be an error, because then this means that your account is outside the valid range. Okay, it's outside the valid range of the application which you are testing. Okay, then once you have validated the ID, first and foremost, tell me, do you understand this ID part now, what we are trying to do up here? Exactly, Uzafa. It's like the login part. We are currently creating the login system. Okay, ID kahan pe store hai, we're going to come to that. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to discuss that. But do you understand what I'm trying to do up here? Okay. Perfect, that's great to know. Are only names and passwords stored in the accounts array? Yep. They clearly mentioned it in the question that the account array only stores what? The holder's name and the passwords. So what's happening is that once we have this account number being inputted, which now the user will tell me as in login that okay, log in, my account number is 25. Okay, my account number is 25. So now we're going to check whether that 25 exceeds the total number of accounts or not. It's similar to saying I have 100 documents in front of me. I say that document number 27 is mine. So I can say, yes, that document number 27 exists in a pile of 100 documents, right? But if I say that I have 100 documents and I say the 357 document is mine, so bro, itne to exist hi nahi karte, how come it be? Or if I say like, give me -7 document, that's mine. That's also incorrect, right? Because that does not make sense. So similarly, we first and foremost check the ID. Now, once the ID exists, I need to now check, I'm going to ask the user to create a login system. In the login system, I'm going to ask the user, okay, bro, tell me your name and tell me your password. So I know that, okay, the ID is, let's say, ID number 25. So like in my ID number 25, let's assume that this is row number 25. I have the name as, let's say, Huzefa, and I have the password as, let's say, CS Guru 123. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask the user कि okay bro, you want to log in into your account. Guys, chill आप पहले से आगे ना जाया करो, kindly just wait and listen up how we're gonna do. इसीलिए फिर आप लोग confuse होते हो, फिर कहते हो सर हमें समझ नहीं है. So now we're gonna ask for the user to input their name and password. So the person will give me their name, and then the person will give me their password. And now I would go to my array. I would go to my array at position number 25 because I know that this position number 25 is basically my ID. So what I can do is I can go to the accounts array. I can go to the accounts array. Whatever the ID number is, which I know is 100% existing, I can say that go to this column, a row. And when I go to this row, because it's a 2D array, when I want to compare it with the name, it's going to be my column number 1. And when I want to compare it with my password, it has to be column number 2, right? So I'm going to first and foremost go to, let's say, column number 1, and I'm going to compare this with name, which the user inputted up here, like this name, which the user entered. If the name matches, like let's say the person also wrote Huzefa, and then the password, similarly, if I compare the password to, and the password also matches that it's CS Guru 123 and the name was Huzefa, then this validates that yes, this person ID exists, and yes, this the person's name matched, and also the person's password matched too. Index is ID. Yes, exactly. Index is ID. It's stated in the question, guys. Please read the question carefully. You see, the bank account ID gives the index of each account's holder. So it's your ID, which is basically my index, or like you can say your position. Okay. Let me see. Okay, we have a small amount of lag. Why is that coming? Okay, it's fine back now. Okay. No, okay. Now. Once you have understood this point that we have a login system that first takes your ID, then your name, and then your password. We're going to first and foremost check that. So what we did, so the program worked in a way that we first and foremost asked the user to give me their ID. And then I checked the ID, whether it's within 0 and the total number of accounts I have. Because I cannot have an account number which is greater than the largest, right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, I asked the user for their name plus password. And then I went to the array at that specific index. Okay. So, okay. Ignore the camera, guys. Ignore the camera. So if it's your name and password, we ask for that, and then we basically check that part. Voice is not coming. Let me check. It's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Okay, it's perfectly fine. So now we're going to take name plus password. I'm going to check that with array, that whether in the array where we have the names and password stored, because I know that this account number has been validated. This means that this is also my index. So if I go at that position to my accounts array and I go to the column number 1 and I compare it with the name which the person inputted, or like if I go to the accounts array and then I go to same index, but this time column number 2, and I compare that with the password. If the two does not match, if they do not match, this would mean what? This would just mean that basically your password or name did not match. Which if it did not match, then this means I would be like, okay, bro, you cannot enter this account details, right? Because you have input this incorrect password or the incorrect name. So that is really important. Now, what we need to do is that once we have understood all this, that we have, let's say, checked for the ID, we have checked for the name and password. Now we need to create a display menu, which will show 4 actions available for the account holder to choose from. So our program should be able to display the balance, withdraw the money, deposit the money, and exit. And you can allow an action to be chosen and completed. Now, people that day, somebody asked me that day, sir, how will I get to know when to use a procedure or a function? So whenever you are required to use a procedure or a function, the question will clearly mention it. Like, for example, it says that allows an action to be chosen and completed, and each action is completed by a procedure with a parameter of the account ID. So we are basically required to create 4 parameters. or perhaps not the 4 one, let's make it just 3. Okay, 3 parameters. One parameter is going to display the balance. Okay, the second parameter is going to withdraw the money, and then the third parameter is going to deposit the money. I know this 15 marker may seem very challenging, but this has to be one of the most difficult 15 markers. That is why I kept it till this very point, that I'm going to do this today, and tomorrow I'm going to do even a further more challenging one, which was even way more difficult than this, which was the May June what do we call it, 2024 paper. Okay, so May June 24 question paper 22. So we're going to do that tomorrow, which will be our last one. I would recommend that you read the question before coming to the class so that you understand what we are going to do. Now we need to create 3 separate parameters. Once we have validated the CIES, I have logged in successfully, then I'm going to write code which can display the balance for me. Parameters same है, parameters तीनों के लिए same है, parameters will stay the same, which is just my account ID. Okay, what's my account ID? So account ID is basically my row, or like my index, right, the position. So now I need to write 3 separate programs. If I have to display my balance, how will I do that? So displaying the balance program is literally easy. I'm just going to go to my account details array. I'm just going to come up here. You won't be leaving the parameters empty. Okay, so yes, we will be creating a menu. Chill मैं बताता हूँ. So we're going to go to the account details array. We're going to go to the column number 1. We're going to go to column number 1, and whatever the value at that column number 1 for the specific ID is, that's my current amount of balance. That's the first process. The second one is, let's say you are required to withdraw some sort of money. So I'm going to check the withdraw amount. Like for example, let's write code till position number 1, and after this we're going to do it. Okay, so if I have to start off, the question clearly mentions that you are not. So what we are supposed to do is, we are not required to declare and initialize the data in the global arrays. So you're not required to put data into anything. It's assumed that you have done, but it clearly mentions you are only required to declare any local arrays and local variables they use. So this clearly mentions anything I need to use, I need to declare it. It's stated. So if something is stated, yes, then I need to do it. Now in a question where it's stated, I would recommend leave the first few blanks for declaration part, that if let's say you forgot about declaration and you might want to declare something at the end, like midway you realize that okay, there is a variable I had to declare, so you can declare it up here. Otherwise you can just write comments up here if let's say nothing comes up. So I'm just going to leave these places blank so that if I have to declare something, I might do it later on. Now the first thing is that I'm going to validate this ID, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first and foremost ask the user. But you know, I can do one other thing too. Whenever you get the question which asks you to deal with different procedures, okay, listen up. So if a question asks you to create procedures slash functions, and then you are required to like create a menu for that, because a lot of you are facing problems with creating a menu. What you should do is, the proper way to solving this question is that you first and foremost create the procedures and functions. So like let's say I wrote the code for 3 procedures. So I'm first going to write the code for the procedures. Okay, so procedure 1, procedure 2, procedure 3, and then at the end I'm going to create the menu where I might use something like case statement. Okay, so I might make use of case statement. So I might do like case of, let's say, option, and if it was 1, then you call parameter this one. If it's 2, call parameter this one. If it's 3, call parameter this one. If it's 4 otherwise, you might say that okay, program ended, bye bye. So whenever you're asked to create a menu question usually comes up alongside the usages of procedures and functions. So you are first required to create the procedures. Okay, so you're first going to create the procedures, you're going to write the code, and then we are going to make use of case statement to call those respective procedures. We're going to do this right now, and don't worry, it's going to be very, very good to go. So if I have to create a procedure, the first procedure which I'm just going to create is of the display balance. Okay, so we're going to create the one for the display balance. So if I have to display the balance, how will I do that? It's pretty much very straightforward. So I might write the keyword procedure, and then I might do display balance, or display bal. And definitely the question clearly mentioned that I'm going to take a parameter of account ID. So I'm going to write account ID as my parameter. So ACC ID. Okay, and that is going to be of the data type integer. Now this will basically, what this program or this array or this procedure will does is it's basically going to output current balance. So if I know what my account ID is, and I know my account ID is basically what, it's basically this index. If I know this account ID and I want to access the balance, how will I do that? I'm just going to write the account details array. So account details, then I'm going to go into my row, right? I'm going to go into my row. What's my row number? My row number is basically my account ID. So I'm going to go into account ID, and then I'm just going to go into what? I'm just going to go into the column number 1. So I'm going to go into column number 1. So similarly, the same thing is going to happen up here, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the account array, and I'm just going to output the value. So I would be like, okay, output your current total balance is, your current total balance is, always include these meaningful messages. There are marks for this. Okay, your current total balance is, and then you might put a colon, full quotation marks close, and then start off with writing it. So account details, and then you have these square brackets. You go to the account ID row, and then you go to column number 1. Done with this. That's the only task this procedure had to do. You just had to display the balance. You're done with displaying the balance. I'm just going to do end procedure. So congratulations, you just completed one of the procedures. So end procedure. So you're done with one of them. Now I'm going to go and write the second one. So I'm done with display balance. Easiest add this. Okay. So now the second one is that I have to withdraw money. So if I have to withdraw money, how do I withdraw money? So withdraw money would mean two things. Firstly, I'm going to ask the person, how much do you want to withdraw? Okay. So if let's say the person says 250, I want to withdraw 250 rupees. So withdrawing 250 means that I'm going to first and foremost check whether the person, if this 250 is, let's say, within the maximum amount the person can withdraw or not. So like in this case, the balance is of 350, overdraft is of 100. What's the maximum a person can withdraw? Like what's the max withdrawal? What's the max withdrawal? The max withdrawal at this point, we saw it at the start of the question, that whenever I have to do max withdrawal, it's like the total amount of balance you have plus any overdraft you might have. Okay, any overdraft you might have. That's the maximum amount of withdrawal you can do. Okay, max possibility. But then at the same time, you, whatever the amount you're trying to withdraw, it should also be within this correct range, right? So like if my program says that you can maximum withdraw 200 rupees and you're trying to withdraw 250, then this should give an error. And similarly, if it's, let's say, less than the withdrawal limit, but I have to then check whether do I have that much money in my account or not. So the proper way to doing this is that I'm going to, let's say, have my balance. Okay, so I'm going to ask the user for the amount to be withdrawn. Okay, so that I, let's say, want to remove this much amount. So I have my total maximum possibility of balance plus the overdraft, right? This is the maximum amount of money I can withdraw at once. Now what I'm going to do is I'll be first and foremost asking that if this amount which the user wants to withdraw, if this amount is greater than, or sorry, if this amount is, let's say, greater than, yes, the withdrawal amount, the maximum withdrawal amount, then this means I should have an error. That, okay, bro, you're exceeding the amount of money which you can maximum sort of take out. You cannot take out this much money. Let's say the amount is not greater than the withdrawal limit. It's not greater than the limit. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether this amount which I need to exceed or take out, is it less than the balance plus overdraft? Is it? If it is less than that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract this much money from the balance. So I'm going to do balance minus the amount of money which I want to take out. And that is how you need to write the second program, the second code, which is for like withdrawal amount. Okay, so withdrawal amount is basically going to be done this way. So what I'm going to now write the code in a way is that if I'm going to create another procedure, right? So I'm going to add a comment at the top. I might add a comment, and the comment would be, let's say, withdrawal of money. And so I'm going to be creating another procedure. procedure, and this time the name of the procedure is going to be something like withdraw. Okay, so I might do withdraw. And just like before, the question clearly mentioned that all the parameters uh, for the procedures are going to be the same. So like the parameter up here was account ID, so the same account ID is basically going to come up here too, and it's also going to be of the data type integer. And once we are done with this, now I need to have multiple stuff inside this. So like for example, for the withdrawal one, I need to have the amount of money that needs to be withdrawn, right? So I need a variable to be declared. So I might declare a variable declare at the top. Now you see why I left this space, so I can declare at the top. So I might do declare amount, and it's going to be of the data type integer. So I might declare that up here, integer. And now I'm going to go back. Sir, in this there will be declaration of amount variable. Yes, I did declare it. Which don't worry. So now we have the amount declared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user to tell me how much money you want to output, right? But all of this needs to be in the loop that, for example, perhaps I'm going to come to that later. We're going to first and foremost say output, and you're going to say, please enter the amount you want to withdraw. Please enter the amount you want to withdraw. Amount you want to withdraw. Okay, and then you might do what? You might be like taking an input amount. Sir, can we also declare variables in the procedure? Yes, you can. So if anybody wants to do it up here, declare amount, that's also perfect. Just know one other thing, that when you declare something within a procedure or a function, something like this, declare amount to be integer, but it's within the scope of that procedure or function, this is basically going to result in it being a local variable, which means that if I declare account up here and outside the procedure, like somewhere in another procedure, I do output amount, it will not work. So this amount, if it's declared within the procedure, it makes it local variable, which means that it cannot be accessed anywhere outside that. Okay, so we're going to come to the repeat point here in just a minute. Okay, so now we're going to take an input for the amount. So we took the input for amount, perfectly fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it whether this amount is greater than this withdrawal limit or not. So if I want to access the withdrawal limit, how will I do that? I'm going to go to the account details one. I'm going to go to the row of account ID, and then I'm going to go to what column? I'm going to go to column number 3. And then I'm going to check that if this amount is greater than this amount, then in that case, I would be good. Sir, is it given in the question that this has to be taken as an input? So if you read the question clearly, it does not mention anywhere that how much amount you need to withdraw, right? It does not mention. But definitely if you want to withdraw an amount, we need to take an input, right? Why? Because the question clearly mentions that the parameter will only be of an account ID. Okay, so it's just going to be, parameter is going to be of an account ID. So that means that we are only having one parameter. So because we are just going to have one parameter, we will be supposed to take an input from the user where, okay, bro, how much do you want to take out? So also make use of a bit of your common sense, that if something does not exist, like that way we did an example that let's say the total number of elements do not exist, we're going to make an assumption that, okay, the limit is of like something big, 250, 300, right? So similarly up here too. So why did I declare it outside myself? So you can do this up here too. This makes it global though. It does not make any problem in the code. I'm just trying to explain it to you that when you do it global, now if I use amount up here or anywhere else, it can work. But if I declare something within a procedure, it can only work within that scope of the procedure. So I just wanted you to understand this logic and what's basically happening around it. So the screen got stuck a bit again, I guess. All right, sorry. Why are we doing the procedure part first? I'm going to come to that. Don't worry. When we are making the menu, Ishal, you're going to understand why we doing the procedure part first. Okay. So now we're going to take an amount of money. So I'm going to check this, right? That let's say, if this amount, which I'm basically sort of taking in, okay, if this amount is greater than the account ID 3, then this means amount is greater than the withdrawal limit. So I might do if amount is greater than account details, and then we are going to go into the row of account ID. So go to the account ID row, and go to column number 3, which is my withdrawal amount, right? If it is greater than that, this clearly tells me that okay, I have exceeded the maximum amount of money I can take out, even though I might have that much money in my account. So then in that case, I need to output that okay, you're going wrong. So then I might do something like then output, and in the output I'm going to write that the amount is greater than the withdrawal limit. So I might do amount is greater than the withdrawal limit is greater. Oh, what happened? Greater than the withdrawal limit. Withdrawal limit. So what we first do other parts and check that if account ID exists or not. We're going to do that later. So because we are creating procedure, it depends upon how we call it at the end. Abhi matter nahi kar raha. Like okay, I might make display balance first, withdraw second. I might make all the procedures. When I come back to creating the menu, up there it matters which one of them is being called first and which not. Right now I'm just creating random procedure. We're going to create that too, so it does not matter up here. The account ID is basically the parameter. The parameter will be provided by the user. We're going to take that as an input, and then whatever the input is, we're going to put that in this point. So like I might say in the menu that okay bro, input account ID. So the person is going to input account ID, then I might do call procedure or call withdrawal with this account ID. So that's the logic or thinking behind it. Okay. So now if it's greater than the maximum withdrawal amount, that's an issue. So I might do that. You output this and then do end if. And let's say if it's not, or like for example, now I'm going to check whether this amount is greater than the total balance or not, which is basically what total balance is. The if this amount is, let's say, greater than the balance which is available plus overdraft. So balance is basically account ID 2 and account ID 1, and because it's column number 1, and overdraft is basically account ID number 2. So now we're going to add these two together. And we're going to check if the amount which I'm trying to take out, if it's even greater than that, this again means that there is an issue because I don't have that much money in my account. So I might do if amount is basically greater than account details, but in the row of ACC ID 1 plus account details, ACC details for the same account ID but column number 2. If it's greater than those two, then in that case there will be a problem, because again its amount is greater than the cash available. So then I'm again going to do then output. I'm going to come to the repeat until guys hoga. I know. So question says any action can only take place when we're doing the procedure. Aata hu, I'm going to come on that. Don't worry, chill man. You're going to understand this when I'm creating the menu. Okay. So then you might do output money withdrawn greater than cash available, or like amount greater than the cash available, greater than the total cash available. Okay, done with this. Available. Now again I'm going to put an end if. Now let's say it's neither greater than the withdrawal limit, nor is it greater than when I add the balance plus the overdrawn limit with the credit limit which I have. This means that I do have the necessary amount to basically make the transaction, right? Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to basically check that if this amount is less than the withdrawal limit, okay, if this amount is less than the withdrawal limit and at the same time it's greater than these two, and at the same time the amount is basically greater, if it's like basically less than the withdrawal limit, but the amount at the same time is also less than the total amount of money I can withdraw, in that case I should basically deduct the money from my account. So what I'm trying to say is that basically what we are going to now check is that if I have 350 plus 100, I'm first and foremost going to check that if my money which I have to withdraw, if this money is less than 200 and at the same time this money is equal to this plus this, or like less than or equal to this plus this, then in that case you should reduce my balance, should be subtracted by the money which I have. That's the logic which I'm trying to explain up here. So now I'm going to make an if statement again, and I'm going to say that I'm going to add a comment, deducting balance. Deducting balance. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to check that if this amount which I have, if this amount, नो यू कैन नॉट यूज एलसिफ. एलसिफ इसलिए सही नहीं होगा क्योंकि एलसिफ आपको ये तो चेक कर देगा कि अमाउंट इज ग्रेटर, लाइक लेट्स से द अमाउंट इज लेस देन दैट, बट व्हाट इफ आई से दैट द अमाउंट it might be greater than the withdrawal limit, so it does not check that, right? So you cannot do an else statement for both of them together. That is why you have to put an if statement. सही है. Also if anybody of you is writing it this way, else if x is let's say greater than 18, then that's wrong. Okay, you don't have anything like that. If you want to make use of else if, you need to do it this way, else, and then in the next line you're going to write if x is greater than 18. So keep this notation in your mind. This was a confusion a lot of people had, but I wanted it to be clarified. Okay, so now I'm going to check that if this amount is less than the withdrawal limit. How do I get to know the withdrawal limit? It's basically account details, account ID 3. So account details, account ID 3. If it's less than that, ID 3. If it's less than that, and at the same time, I say that your amount is also less than this. So I can just copy this thing up. Okay, we cannot copy this fully. So I can just copy this part. And I say that your account amount which you have sort of going to be withdrawing, it's basically less than account details this plus the account details for account ID 2. If it is less than the maximum amount I can withdraw and I do have enough cash in my account too, if this happens, then this means that I'm good to go, and now I should reduce my balance, right? So how will I be reducing the balance? So I'm going to do what? I'm going to go into my account details ID column number 1, which is my balance. So I'm going to go into the balance one. So I'm going to go into this balance part, this one. And from 350, I'm going to subtract the money, which was like, let's say 250. So I'm going to do 350 minus 250, whatever the values, I'm going to store it back up here. So this is going to make it 100. So now 100 is going to be written up here. That is what we are trying to do. So now if I have to reduce this, what am I going to do? I'm going to do it pretty easily. I'm going to do, go to the account details one. Go to the account details array. Go to the row number for account ID. And in there, because I want to store the value inside the balance, I'm going to go to column number 1, which is my balance one. And in that balance, whatever the previous value of that is, you take that. And from that, you basically subtract the value of amount. So you do this minus amount, and then this amount is again restored up here, and then you do what? You do end if. But now the problem is, let's say I assume that this was a problem, like the amount was, let's say, greater than the total cash, or if I say that the amount was greater than the withdrawal limit, does that mean my program will stop? No, right? I need to make use of a logic which, when let's say one of them is incorrect, I should go back to the top and again ask the person for an amount. So whenever we have a scenario where something needs to be done again and again in case some error comes up, we make use of what? We make use of repeat logic. So I'm going to put a repeat up here. That's why I left this line blank, and I'm going to repeat, and I'm going to say that all this needs to be carried out again and again until what happens? Until I say that this amount of mine is less than the total withdrawn I can do, and at the same time it's greater than the account ID 2 plus account ID 1. So like the amount is greater than what I have in the bank account, and at the same time the amount is also not negative. Okay, amount is also not negative. एक तो procedure हो जाए, मैं फिर आप लोग को quick overview कराता हूँ. Okay, so you're just gonna write, and you need to keep on repeating this until amount is basically less than account details and then you go to the third one, which is ACC ID, column number 3. This is the first condition, that this happens, and at the same time this amount which I have to take out from my account, that should be basically, like I can say, and amount should be basically less than the account details ID, account ID 1, again the same, like balance, column number 1, plus account ID or account details. Again, you go to the ID part, account ID, but you go to column number 2, which is the credit amount. If this is less than that, and it's also less than the withdrawal limit, and at the same time I also say that my amount is basically greater than 0, then in that case you should stop the repeat statement. Until if any of this statement is false, you should go back. So just what we did was we copied the same statement which we had up here, and which we had up here, and we converted that into a repeat statement, that if any of this condition falls up, you go back to the top. So what this concept up here is testing us to do is, secondly, two different for do different, not like for the one as rows and column. लूप्स यहाँ पे नहीं चलेंगे, लूप्स नहीं चल सकते. So मैं आपको अब explain कर दूँ quickly what's happening in the code. So we're sort of writing a code that is sort of calculating the withdraw amount. Okay, how much money I need to withdraw. So one of the parameter for the withdraw would be my account ID, the ID of my account. So I'm going to take that as a parameter. Now I'm going to ask the person to tell me how much money you want to take out. It's going to input that amount. I'm going to check that if that amount is greater than the withdraw limit, I have the limit. Then this means that, okay, you're trying to exceed the limit. So that's not possible. Then if let's say, then if it's not outside the limit, I need to check that do I even have that much money in my account. The total money that I can exceed is basically equal to what? Oh my bad. So it's basically equal to, your total money is equal to the balance you have plus the extra limit which you can evade. So this balance is accessed by this part when you have go to the account details part, but in column number 1, whereas the limit is basically accessed by column number 2 for the same index. We even saw this up here when we were making the diagram for it. You can clearly see it up here. You see this overdraft is your extra limit, balance is your current balance. So now if it's, let's say, greater than that, this again means that, okay buddy, you're trying to access amount which you do not even are capable of accessing. You don't have that much money. How are you trying to do it? So then I'm going to say that amount is greater than the withdrawal limit, and now I'm going to check that, for example, let's say sorry, up here it's going to say that amount is greater than the total cash. Okay, then let's say if I assume that now it's also within the limit, and at the same time I have that much amount in my bank too, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check that if amount is less than the limit, and at the same time my amount is less than the total money I can take out. So this is the limit one, and this is basically checking the total money I have in my account. If it is less than that, in that case I'm going to go to the balance part, which is basically account details column number 1, and from that I'm going to subtract my amount, and then I'm again going to store the value inside the balance. So you see that inside the balance I store the same value of balance being equal to balance minus the value of amount which I'm trying to withdraw. And then if let's say one of these cases failed, then your program should go back thanks to the repeat loop, and this should carry on until either my amount it's less than the account ID detail column number 3. Like for example, you should keep on repeating until I have the money which is under the limit, and at the same time the money is basically less than the total amount of money I might want to take out of my account, and at the same time amount is greater than 0. If none of the condition are true, you go back and you repeat this whole thing. That's how you basically make this withdrawal procedure, which was the second most challenging part. Now moving on, the third one is like you need to deposit money. So now if I have to deposit money, how will I deposit it? So I'm going to ask the user for what? How much money do you need to add? So like if I say that, okay, I have 100 rupees in my account, I might do deposit money, and then I might say that, okay, input 20. So you need to go to the balance part, and in that balance part you need to add 20 inside. So it's very straightforward. I'm just going to create another procedure. So I might add a comment up here, and I might write procedure for depositing money. And now you might create another procedure. Perhaps did I write end procedure? I did not. So this is repeat until, and then I'm going to have an end procedure up here. End procedure. Okay, and procedure. Why do you declare global variables outside? It doesn't matter. It's up to me. I want to do it inside. I want to do it outside. Doesn't make any difference. Okay. In this scenario, it doesn't make any difference. I can even do it inside. Yeah, I did end it. Don't worry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the procedure. So again, I'm going to create a procedure this time for the deposit part. So procedure, let's say this, let's give it the name of deposit. Again, just like the others, it's going to take an input for account ID. Account ID has to be of integer data type. So I'm going to write integer up here. And now once this has been created, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now check. I'm going to check that I'm going to first ask the person, okay, buddy, how much money do you need? Now, if let's say you were required to create a local, Huzafa, now this is your question, okay? So if I, let's say, created a local variable, like let's say you created amount up here, declared it up here, then you would be again required to declare amount up here. Because I created it globally, like I created this globally up here, my program does not require to redeclare it up here. But if I had did it locally for the procedure, every time I had to do it, I have to repeat it. But now because it's global, I'm no longer required to do it. Perhaps I'm just going to start off and I'm going to ask the user for the details. So I would be like output, and then I'm going to write, please enter the amount of money you want to deposit. Please enter the amount of money you want to deposit. The amount of money you want to deposit. Money you want to deposit. And now the person will again input the amount, right? So input amount once again. So I'm going to take all of your questions. Okay, sir, can we use the last if statement you wrote in the withdrawal procedure first and then use else statement to automate saying that the withdrawal limit is not enough or the balance is too low? No, the problem is, yeah, if you want to just add it up, like let's say you want to add it up here, that after else you might want to say that one of them is not, but I don't want that. You know why? The reason for not including that is that before you come to this point, the program will automatically tell us whether the amount is greater than the withdrawal limit, or if let's say both of them, then it's going to output both of the messages. Okay, it's going to output both of the messages. So there is no need for separately doing it again, which repeats the same thing. Okay, so we are already done with something, so there is no sort of requirement for that. That's the reason. Okay, so my question was whether global variable is always declared. Man, you have to declare it again on your own. You see, I declared it at the top. You have to declare it, but it's like it's declared once and you can use it anywhere. You can use it in your procedure functions and even outside procedure or functions. But if you declare some local variable, that local variable can only be used within that specific function. Yes, Abdullah Shahid, you should be spending like 1 hour ideally, but again, try to first ensure that the 60 mark part is done. That has more weightage for you, okay? Rather than spending whole time on the 15 marker. Now you're going to take an input for the amount, okay? So you're going to take an input. If it is no need to declare, we don't need to declare. यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है मेरी जान. Bhai, it's clearly mentioned that you are required to declare any local arrays and local variables that you use. Okay, by the way, guys. My bad. So I just saw this. The question clearly mentioned that you had to use local variables. So because the question clearly mentioned, I did not see this first. This means that this global variable up here is wrong. I did not see this. So because this is wrong, I'm going to remove this. Then I have to create a variable which is going to work locally. So if I have to do it locally, this means that I have to create it within the procedure every time I'm using it. So I might bring this at the top and then I might declare it up here. So I might do something like, not up here, my bad. So in the lower one. So I might just copy all this stuff, bring it to the top, and up here we are going to declare it. Okay. So now I get the point. So we're going to declare it locally. The question clearly mentions it. So my bad. So might do declare and then you do amount. Okay, Uzafa, that's great. Declare. I want to banda पूछ लेता है, guys. Questions पूछा करो ना इस तरह. You could have said that, sir, the question states that you need to do it locally. So now you declare amount to be integer. And now the same thing has to be done for every procedure that includes a specific amount variable. So like up here again in the deposit part, we're gonna again take an we're gonna again declare the same variable, because again it's local, so you need to do it for all of the procedures. So I'm going to do declare, and up here I might do amount, which is going to be an integer. So many कोई मसले की बात नहीं, you can do amount or you might do anything else. Okay, you might even do something like deposit. So deb कर देते, deb for deposit. So you're gonna take an input for deb now, which is like my deposit amount, and now I need to basically add this deposit amount inside my array, right? Shout out to Zephyr. Okay, shout out to Zephyr. Push. So now I'm gonna add the amount. So I'm gonna, but there is one other thing, before taking the deposit, you also need to validate the deposit. Like, what if the person enters something like -50? -50 say it does not get added up, it reduces it, right? So to ensure that we can have a value within the positive range, we need to make use of what? A range check. A range check which makes use of repeat statement. So I might do something like repeat, and in that repeat I might take an input for the amount. So input, and that input will be of deposit. So deb. Yes, this is the paper I got the distinction in. So repeat, you take the input for deposit, and then you keep on repeating this until this deposit is greater than 0. So if it's not greater than 0, your program would be again and again asking for the amount. Perhaps a better option would be that if you take out this repeat statement and you first write this below, so like within the repeat statement, you are always sort of, copying this output message too. So you might do it something like this, and then you bring all of this inside a repeat statement. That would be even much better. Okay, so please enter the amount of money you want to deposit, and then input deposit money, and then you need to keep on repeating until the deposit is greater than 0. Now once you're done with this, once you're done with this part where you do the deposit and I got the money, now I just need to add it where? I need to add it in my balance part. How do I add it in the balance part? I'm going to go to my account details array. So I'm going to go to the account details array, and inside the account details array, I'm going to go into my column number, row number, account ID, and then I'm going to go into column number 1, which stores my balance. And inside this, whatever the previous value was, that plus the amount of deposit will be added up and stored, plus the amount of deposit. And doing this will be done, and we're going to just write what? End procedure. And procedure. Now we are done with the major 3 procedures. Okay, so we are done. I'm going to take all of your questions, guys. Chill. अभी थोड़े सब्र करो, program end होने दो, फिर उसके बाद कर लेंगे. Okay, so we are done with withdraw, we are done with deposit, we are done with displaying the balance. So now the thing is, we did not check for the account ID. So we need to check for the account ID. We need to check for the name and password. So we need to basically create the login system. So I did not create the login system. Now, if I have to create the login system, what I can do is I can create a procedure for that again. So I might create a procedure with the name of, let's say, login. So I might add a comment up here, login system. And now I'm again going to create a procedure. This time, let's say procedure login. Procedure with the name of login. Okay, and this login procedure will be taking again the same parameter, which is account ID, which is going to be of the type integer. This time we're going to check that if let's say anything like the name does not match, or like I say the password does not match, or I say like the account number is invalid, in that case I will be saying that, bro, there should be a variable which should be sort of having the value false, that okay, this ID is not valid, so it's false. It's like you cannot access it. So if something is false, that's going to tell us that this does not exist or there is a problem with it. So if I have to set some value to false, we do what? We create a variable with the name of, let's say, valid maybe, and we set that valid to be false, right? We set that valid to be false. This is going to only become true when my ID is valid, my name matches, and my password matches. If it does not match, this basically means that okay, my valid variable will have the value of false, which means that the values are incorrect. But because the question asks us to declare everything, so I might declare this up here too. So I might do declare valid to be as boolean, because it's only going to store either true or false. So boolean. Also, a better approach would be that rather than writing it this way, because it's a keyword, you write it all capital. Okay, so false. And now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to check the values. So what I'm going to do is I'm first and foremost going to check the variable. So I might do if the account ID, just the way we stated at the start. If the account ID is less than 0, which means like someone inputted some -5 account ID, or I say the account ID is basically greater than the total number of accounts. Like the total number of accounts are stored in what? It's mentioned in the question. The question clearly states that it's being stored in the size variable. So if it's, let's say, greater than the size variable, if it's, let's say, greater than the size variable, in that case, this means that it's invalid. Then I'm going to output the message that it's invalid. Then output, and in output you might write invalid account ID, invalid account ID, invalid account ID. So now this tells us that okay, the person wrote an invalid account ID, but let's say it was correct. In that case, we're going to go where? We're going to go into the else part, right? That let's say else, if it was correct, assume it was correct. In that case, we know that once we have validated the account ID, I'm going to make use of what? I'm going to make use of the name and passwords to be inputted. So I'm going to again ask the user to input their name. So I'll be like output, please enter your name. Please enter your name. Your name. And so now the user will be basically inputting the name of theirs. So they might do input name, and then the same thing will be applied for the password, where you're going to ask the user to basically input the password, and then you're going to ask input the password below that. So you might do the same thing. You might write please enter your password, and then you might do input pass, which is like a short form for password. Now we're going to check this password and name with the array. What's the array that is storing my name and password? It's basically with the name of account. So when I go to the account one, I'm going to go to column number 1 for that specific account number. Okay, if it's equal to the name mass, perfect. If it's not, this means again valid value needs to become false, because definitely this is not fine. But if it's, let's say, correct, then I might say okay, we are going good. This means I should make it still true. And likewise, I'm going to check the password too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this value. I'm going to check the name first. So checking the name, so I might do something like check name and password, name and password. So I might do something like okay, if the name which the user just inputted, if the name is not equal to, how do you put not equals to? We make this sign. If the name is not equal to, when you go to the accounts array, but you go to the ID num which has been inputted up here, like this account ID, my bad. So it's account ID. If your name is not equal to account ID column number 1, which stores my name, or I say that my password that is not equal to your account, but again you go to the account ID and you go to column number 2. If it's not equal to that, in that case you need to output that there has been what do we call it, then you need to output that the password or the username or the name did not match. Then output name or password did not match. Name or password did not match. Password did not match. You write this and you're good to go. Did not match. Done. And now once you're done with this, let's say it did match. For example, it did match with the name and the password did match too. So can they be separated, and if so, how many? Otherwise we need to check. It's better to do them together. Why? Because I'm sort of working in a way that if let's say password is invalid, you output invalid account ID. Otherwise we come and ask for the name. Now we are like okay, if the name is not equal or the password is not equal, you output this. Otherwise again else, if let's say else comes up, this means that okay, the name and the password, both of them are also valid, right? Both of them are also valid. Or perhaps make this and, this has to be and, that if the name is not and also at the same time the password is also not, or perhaps nahi or rahega, yeah, or rahega. If let's say both of them are, let's say, also correct, then when I come to else part, now I don't have space up here, so how do I do that? So in exam you need to write something like a comment up here, continued continued on extra booklet. Okay, extra booklet. So now you're going to ask the examiner, remember, okay, yes, this else and if are connected. Okay, they are sort of connected again and again, again and again, again and again. So now what you're going to do is, now when you don't have space and let's say you know that you're on the last page and let's say you're done with half of the code, at this point you need to raise your hand and you need to ask the invigilator for the extra booklet. Sometimes they take 5-6 minutes and you don't have the potential to waste those 5-6 minutes. So the moment you understand that, okay, I need an extra booklet, just say, sir, ma'am, extra booklet please. Okay, then on the extra booklet they will ask you to fill out the name and details first. Don't fill those at the start. Do that once your paper time ends. They give you those 2 minutes to fill that up. Okay, but yeah, continued on the extra sheet, then you're going to write the question number. So it's basically question number 12. So you're going to clearly mention question number 12 up here, and then you write your code by adding this, or maybe, and you can add continued. Okay, continued. And so now we're going to come back to the else part, and now I'm going to say that if let's say this matches and also the password is also valid, then I'm going to make this valid, which was at the start having the value of false, this to be true. So I might make this valid, store the value of true. So this valid now stores the value of true. Clear? Okay, so now this valid stores the value of true, and now I'm going to do end if, end if, end if. So end if, end if, and of course at the end I'm just going to do end procedure. So end procedure. So if something is wrong, it's going to output it up. If not, it's just going to work perfectly fine. End procedure. You might have a question, sir, why did we not make use of repeat until up here? Because we are not taking input for the account ID. The account ID is just going to be a parameter. So like, let's say now within the program, you're going to ask that, okay, if let's say the program outputs something like invalid, if it outputs something like invalid, then this means the person needs to re-enter the account ID the right way. Okay. So coming to this, again, let me take a few questions. So, sir, if we reserve 1 hour for the 15, won't it be difficult to complete the 6 mark flow chart? इसीलिए बोल रहा हूँ आप पहले घंटे में 60 first 60 mark cover करो. The remaining time you have to do the 15 marker in that. I most probably got a 15 or 50 if I'm not wrong. So, by the way, you are correct. This should be and, by the way, this shouldn't be or. Because if both of them do not match, but in that case you would also be required to add another statement where you can do check for like the name individually and for the password individually. Okay, so yeah, so you do not need to repeat, and you do not add to you are not required to put a repeat until up here. Okay, so there isn't any repeat until. It's a procedure that is just going to check if it's valid, there will be no output, but if it's not valid, it's going to output that name or password did not match. Okay. Sir, have you made a video on procedure and function? Yes, it's in the chapter 8 playlist. Okay, so can we use a loop in this? No, you cannot. You cannot. Why will you be even making a loop use in it? They gave you the ID, you make use of the loop and you do not know the ID, okay? You make use of the loop and you want to go through an array and you do not know the index. So you go one by one. Because up here, you know that you directly need to only go to the account ID one, which is like one specific part of it. There is no need for loop. Now let's move on. Okay, so now we are done with this procedure too. Now we have checked it up. We have created a procedure for deposit. We have created a procedure for withdrawal. We have created a procedure for displaying the balance. Now this was just creating procedures. Okay, it's similar to saying that right now I wrote 4 different paragraphs. The order does not matter. Okay, so this is, let's say, introduction, this is conclusion, this is main body, this is maybe some other main body. Okay, so there are like 4 paragraphs. Now this is the point when I'm going to create a menu. In the menu, I need to organize all of them in the right way. I'm going to first and foremost do the introduction paragraph. Then after the introduction, it's going to go to the main, then the second main, and in the end, I'm going to put a conclusion. So like till this point, it did not matter what's the order of the procedure. Now, while I'm creating the menu, it's going to matter. So how will I write that? So I'm going to check. First and foremost, I'm going to create something like, what do we call it? So now I'm going to create a menu. So I'm going to add a comment, creating a menu. Okay, creating a menu. Let me complete this and उसके बाद मैं आपको बताता हूँ. Creating a menu. So now if you have to create a menu, in that case, what you need to do right now is, okay, You need to sort of implement a model which checks in a way that first and foremost you're going to ask the user to enter the account number. So I'm going to say output enter account number, enter. Okay, so now this is a special case. Now definitely you cannot have a local variable at this point, right? So up here, this is an exception. You are required to put a global variable, enter account number. Okay, so now when the user is going to enter the account number, let's say input ACC num, this ACC num has to be declared, which we haven't. So I'm going to put the declaration part up here. I'm going to leave some space that if I have to declare later on, I can do it. So declare, and I might do account number ACC num, which is going to be an integer, which is going to be an integer. And now what I'm going to do is that once I've taken an input for the account number, I'm going to now check whether it's valid or not, whether it's valid or not. So how do I check that? Have you thought how will I check that? So to check that whether it's valid or not, what I can do is I can just call the procedure with the name of login. So I can just do a procedure with the name of login. So I can do login account number. So I can do login ACC number. And this will basically do what? It's basically going to bring up the value of valid into the program. Now I'm going to check this valid, that, and perhaps I also need to create the valid up here. So I'm going to declare valid. So declare valid, which is going to be of the type Boolean. So what I'm going to do right now is that because this program gives me the value of valid, right? I have the valid value. Now I'm going to check that if valid is equal to true, if valid is equal to true, let's say, then I want you to repeat and make a menu, which is going to work in a way that I'm going to start repeating in case something incorrect comes up. I'm going to repeat it. Otherwise, I'm going to output, and in the output, it's basically going to be detail like enter 1 for depositing money, 2 for withdrawal, 3 for checking balance, 4 for, or perhaps there shouldn't be anything like 4. Okay, so you just do this, or like you can say that you might make 4, or perhaps 4 for exit. Okay, 4 for exit. So now if I want to exit it up, before that I'm going to make use of a case of statement, but I need to take an input. So I might do input choice, and then the choice again it has to be an integer. So I need to create that as an integer too. Now if you don't have space like this, what you can do is you can deduct this, remove this part, maybe cut it off, and write choice next to it, and then you put a colon together. This means that both account number and the choice at the same time, both of them are basically equal to integer. Sir, won't login be assigned to valid? Nahi, this valid basically comes up from this valid which we had up here. So it's not being assigned somewhere, it's just the valid which we had at the top, it's being called again. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take an input for the choice. Okay, input for the choice, and I'm going to check case of choice. Now if the option which the person inputted was 1, I clearly mentioned that 1 is going to be for depositing the money. So what's the procedure which I created for deposit? It was deposit with account ID. So I'm going to call what? Deposit, and with the parameter what? The account number which was being inputted. So ACC num. Then if the input was, let's say, of 2, which was basically to withdrawal, so I'm again going to call the procedure name, which was basically what? Withdrawal. So I might do withdrawal, and within the withdrawal I might write account number. Similarly, if the input was of, let's say, 3 was to display balance, so I might do display, was it display bal or what? Let me see. It was the first one I did, display bal. Okay, so I'm just going to do display bal up here. So display bal. Okay, so if you want to put call next to it, aap kar sakte ho, but call is not mandatory. Like if you open up the marking scheme for this question, it's not mandatory. They did not state it up here. But if you want to call it up, that's also perfectly fine, because according to the syllabus, you are required to call it up. So you can do it this way too. Call, call, call. Okay. And now let's say you come to the fourth option. The fourth option is where, but I'm again telling you that even if you don't call it up, you're still good to go. Okay. So even if you don't call it up, ऐसे नहीं है कि आपके marks यहाँ पे deduct होंगे. And let's say if it's 4, I need to make the exit true. But how will I exit it up? That's the question. Okay, that's the question. So you're going to exit it only when I say that there is a variable exit. Okay, and I say that what do we call it? For example, I might say that okay, output up here you might output something exiting, output, and you might write exiting. And otherwise, if something else comes up, then you're going to output that that's invalid choice. So otherwise invalid output, invalid option. Invalid option. And now what you're going to do is that you're going to make use of the case of statement. We are done with this, so I'm going to just put an end case. And now all this has to repeat till when? You need to keep on repeating this until what happens? Until I say that this what do we call it, choice which the user is going to input, that is basically equal to 4. So until the choice is not equal to 4, you need to keep on repeating it. But the moment your choice is of 4, which is to basically exit the value, you should just stop off and you should say that I'm done. And let's say if that's even not correct, so if that's going to become true only when this valid is false, right? So in that case, I'm just going to put else up here at the top. So I'm going to put this else, and I'm going to then output else, output incorrect account ID, incorrect account ID. And then I'm just going to put an end if at the start, and that marks the end of your menu. That is how you create a menu. सर चॉइस डिक्लेयर होंगी तो की है ब्रो, ये देखो चॉइस को मैंने डिक्लेयर किया हुआ है. सो सर वो लॉग सर व्हाट अबाउट डिपॉजिट? तो डिपॉजिट मैंने नहीं किया, कर दिया नहीं, देखो एट द टॉप डिपॉजिट ही है. Valid is now global variable, so it's can carry on. Yep, so valid is sort of a global variable, and when I do it this way, when I call this procedure up here globally, the variable valid now has the value inside it. Okay, so this valid tells me the value up there. Or what you can other way do is that if you want to even make it way more secure, you can also do one thing कि ये जो आपने login का function बनाया ना, you create this to be a function. Okay, so we create login to be a function, and we always know that a function returns. So you can do at the end return valid, and then if I return that valid statement could be done up here. Yes, this was one of the most difficult questions that has been tested till this point. Okay, so like if you want to even make it more secure or better, what I can do is that rather than this being a procedure, why not make it a function? So you can make it a function like this. Okay, so maybe I make it a function like just C. So I might make it a function. So function login. And if I'm making a function is always going to return something, right? So I might also do return, and because it's going to return valid is going to be of Boolean nature. So I might do return Boolean. Okay, this might make more sense to you guys. Okay, so it returns Boolean, and at the end where this valid stuff comes up, so valid being true, end if, and then before ending the function, you might do something like return valid. So you might do return valid, and then after returning the valid, you might end the function. So end function. Now when you're making the menu, rather than calling it as a procedure, if it was a function, we can make this variable to be as valid C to maybe check it as valid check, and then I can do login account number, because it's going to be a function is always going to return something. So that value which is going to return, it's going to be the value of the valid part, and it's going to return it into valid C. And now I'm going to check if valid C is equal to true. You keep on repeating this until if it's not true, if it's false, this means incorrect account ID. Okay. Sir, why else is there in the last? It's there in the last because this if statement was saying that if this is true, then you need to do this. But if this is false, this means that it's only going to be false when this login function returns a false value, and it's only going to return a false value when this account number is wrong. So I'm going to write that else statement just to tell that, okay, the account ID which you inputted up here, that is incorrect. Sir, can there be a question for bubble sort for 2D arrays? Yes, there can be a question, and a question has been tested on site, and it has been tested in October, November 2025. but it was sort of easy because they already explained कि क्या आएगा and how you need to do it. Sir, in these questions, can we write the menu first like the case one and uske baad relevant procedures baad mein likh le? Well, you can do that, but it's better that whenever you do something like this, you always write the procedures and functions first, so your computer knows all of that first, and then at the end you create a menu. Now, it's not like a good programming practice to create a menu first and then create the procedures. But I don't think so your examiner is going to deduct marks for this. But it's still, my recommendation would be that whenever you get a menu question, create procedure function first and then do it at the end. रिटर्न नहीं होगा बूलियन वाला, तो किया ना इसने, रिटर्न किया, ये देखो, ये लॉगिन अकाउंट नंबर इज गोना रिटर्न द वैल्यू ऑफ बूलियन नेचर, तो वो बूलियन वैलिड सी के अंदर स्टोर होगा एंड फिर हम उसको चेक करें. Why until 4? Until 4 because I'm saying that you need to keep on inputting choice, and when you enter 4, this means you should exit the program. So when your choice is of 4, this means you should say tata bye bye. This was the May-June 2023 paper number 22. This is one of the most difficult 15 markers that have been tested. Okay, so don't worry, don't be like, okay, I'm cooked or something. This indeed was the paper जिसके बाद सब रो रहे थे. Okay, there was a very cooked scene after this paper, and the threshold for this was also like literally 44 marks. The first 60 mark part was very easy, by the way. Okay, so the first 60 mark part was easy, and you just need to get like 44 in this paper. 44 out of 75. I luckily, alhamdulillah, I guess ended up getting like maybe 74 out of 75. Mashallah. But yeah. So the first 60 mark part was not that difficult. You can try to get higher marks there. So didn't we have to declare the name and password? Name and password karna tha na? Didn't I do it? I did not. Okay, yes, you're correct. We had to do it. So now let's say a scenario like this comes up. You don't have space. You realize this pretty much very late that I had to declare it. How do you declare it now? So best action is you write it small up here. Declare, and then within declare you first write name, and because we don't have space, you might do name, comma, pass, and both of them are basically of the data type string. That's how you need to solve it. I'm studying right now at LUMS. So, yep. Sir, can we write the whole code at once and then write the comment? Yep, exactly. So you should do that. So now when I'm done with everything, I have like, let's say 5 minutes left. Now I'm going to add comments. Okay. So everywhere I'm going to add comments. I'm going to add comment until 4. You might add 4 is exiting option. Then you might say, up here you might add that function returns value, so wherever you might want to add the value, you can. Okay, then you might do something like up here, valid equals to true comment, all cases passed, or like all checked, something like this. So everywhere where you get a chance, you can sort of write a comment. Okay, yeah. So sir, there is one issue. Why are theories of pseudocode not traceable? Any advice for flowchart? Theories of pseudocode not traceable? क्या मतलब? So if code is longer than the line, then how to write on the next line? This way. See? So it was longer than the line, so I wrote it below that. Okay, this way. So how to do the B part of the trace table in which the processes are not mentioned? For that, your logic needs to be clarified, and at the same time, while solving a trace table, try to see कि जो values आ रही हैं, what are those values? Identify some pattern. Usually, it's very much, indicating what's trying to happen. So उससे बंदे को पता लग जाता है. Why are the theories of pseudocode not traceable? I do not get your question. What do you mean by theories of pseudocode not traceable? But that is it for today, guys. That's the 15 marker. One of the most difficult 15 markers. One of the very longest 15 markers. And to be honest, in 2025, examiner did not give you any sort of long questions. They gave you long questions up here, but not in the recent exam. So also, sir, comment like this on next if it's long. Yeah, so if it's longer, it's better to do it this way. Okay, so you might start off with a comment, You might write the comment and let's say it's exceeding, again add slash and continue with this. So इस तरह लिख दो, add both of the slashes. किसने बोला it's not permitted? Who said that? Kursem, you can ask the Excel sheet must. If they do not give you the Excel sheet, tell the invigilator, call the supervisor. I am fully allowed to get an extra booklet. Okay, you are fully allowed. I myself took the booklet multiple times throughout my CIEs, and if they do not allow you, just ask the supervisor. Okay, don't interact with the invigilator. They know nothing about it. They just don't want them to bring that booklet. They do something like this, and you call the senior in what do we call it, supervisor. Okay, call the person in duty. I have full rights to basically get it. Okay, बस ज़्यादा बदमाशी नहीं लिए कर देना, फिर भी ना करे. Let's say they still do not give you. So this blank page which you see, okay, this blank page is fully valid. So you can write it up here on this that continued on the blank page number 15. So you might write blank page number 15, and then number 15 you can clearly mention question 12 continued and all that stuff, and इस तरीके से कर. Sir, can a function 15 marker come? Of course, ये बस function ही है, बस अगर if I change this procedure to function, ये function का बन जाएगा, बस ये सीन है. Sir, please do a marathon of whole paper. I'm gonna upload a paper today on my YouTube channel. आप लोग वो देख लेना. That will be enough, inshallah. I'm gonna upload a paper. Don't worry. Yes, you should watch it from the start. So the supervisor came and said, show me that you're done with the last question. Of course, but show them. So show them. If you don't have the space, बोल दे ma'am, I don't have time left. Okay, मैं जितने में ये करूँगा, it's gonna fill up. फिर आप लोग 10 मिनट लगाएंगे. Will you give me extra time? वो देते ही नहीं है, ड्रामे कर रहे होते. So in that case, whenever you're left with like half of the page, सीधा लिया करो, and they will give you. ना बोला supervisor को बुलाओ, करेंगे. And if the supervisor does not agree, बोल दो कि I'm gonna mail British Council about it. फिर वो करके तो दिखाए, फौरन आपको देंगे. Okay, otherwise worst case nahi hota, so no need to get into panic, no need to rush. You always have the blank page available. You have blank page 15, you have blank page 16, which are more than enough to cover it up. Okay, so you do have 2 spaces left. You can still complete it up here the way I did it, but they will give you, don't worry. It's definitely possible that a 15 marker function question comes up. जैसे हमने यहाँ पे procedure बनाया, वहाँ पे function बनाना होगा, simple. So that is it for today, everybody. The recording will be available, inshallah, in 30-40 minutes, fully processed. So for anybody who did not join us at the start or maybe did not get a specific part of it, they can rewatch the recording and inshallah it would be helpful. Okay, take care, everybody. Inshallah, tomorrow again at 4:30 p.m. we're gonna have the last class, last 15 marker marathon. 4:30 p.m. last marathon, inshallah. And that marathon will be solving the game program, which was the May-June 2024 question paper 22, which is apparently the hardest termed 15 marker among all them. Okay, so yeah. No, you should not ask for the extra booklet as soon as you start the paper. You won't get it at that point, but yes, once you need it, tab pooch lo, okay? How many marks are required? There isn't any set limit, but it's like total when you add P1 and P2, you should cross 120 ideally. Alright, then take care, everybody. See you guys inshallah tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Allah Hafiz.